Okay, so I think we can go ahead and get started. So, first of all, good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining today's Launch and Learn with Microsoft. And our topic for this Launch and Learn series would be Copilot notebooks. So, meet Copilot notebooks. Now, this is going to be a working session, right? Now, I do have this presentation slide deck, and it's just 17 slides, really simple. The idea behind the deck is to really just usher in and provide an overview on what Copilot Notebooks is, so that we can fully understand what it is, what it does, how to use it, and how it can play an important role in helping to organize your work, whether it's research, a project, or anything that you're working on. So that's really Copilot notebooks. We're also going to be understanding, all of what drives it from a large language model perspective, and how to also effectively use it for work. So once again, welcome. My name is Charles Emenoa. I'm a workforce AI cloud solution architect at Microsoft, and I've been working with the University of Miami team, or teams across the University of Miami for quite some time, and it's been a pleasure. Now, obviously, this is a large group, so we will not go around the room to get full-scale introductions. However, what I would love for us to do is please let's leverage the chat and more on that later. But you can pop in, drop your name, just do a slight introduction, your name and your role and what you're looking to get out of the session. So let's pop that into the chat. And then speaking of the chat, I'll also be monitoring the chat for your questions. But by all means, please feel free to come off mute, ask me any question, throw in your contribution. If you have any thoughts, if there's anything that's come top of mind, or if you need guidance as we go through this session, I'll be more than happy to pause for you, take your questions, answer those questions, and we can get full value for this engagement. So once again, I am monitoring the chat, and I'd love to see your names, what you're expecting, your role, and thanks to those who are providing theirs. So looking to have the chat pop with those introductions. Right now, so I think we're ready to get started. So our agenda is really very simple. We're going to be spending 45 to 60 minutes, depending on how quickly we're able to exhaust our content. And the idea here is to fully understand Copilot notebooks. Now, this session also will include a demo session where I will show you Copilot notebooks, and then so we can just do a quick walkthrough together to fully understand how it works. So we're not going to spend too much time on the PowerPoint slide decks. However, I will be providing a PDF copy of the slide deck that I am working with and presenting, so that way you could also have that for your records. I think we're ready to dive in. Good. So what is Copilot notebooks, or what is a Copilot notebook? Now, think of a Copilot notebook as an AI project room. That's really just going to be the simplest way to define Copilot notebooks. So everything inside this notebook is going to be purposeful. Everything outside of it stays out, right? So if you are creating a project that's specific to a topic, you can create a Copilot notebook for that project. Now, this is really just going to be the entire mental model, right? Contrast it with, everything that you already know from M365, such as using OneNote. So if you're very familiar with OneNote, and I love OneNote, It's one of the best tools on M365 to help me organize my work. But if we look at the concept of OneNote, right? Within OneNote, you create a note for a specific thing. And then within that note, you can then have several pages. Those pages just appear as tabs. Now, that is pretty much the same concept as, as Copilot notebooks. So, but the difference here is that each notebook is going to be AI grounded within M365. And that will help you create or curate, specific references. The references can be documents, Microsoft Word documents, PDFs, PowerPoint presentations, emails, meeting notes, and even Copilot pages. So for a specific endeavor, for a specific project, or for a specific context, you are just using that Copilot notebook in that context. But this time, it's better AI grounded. I'm getting feedback. I think I should just.
Yo te dije, yo no voy a poder comer porque o como o presto atención a esto. Sí, bueno.
Sorry, I just muted. I was getting feedback from the audience. But don't forget, by all means, if you have any questions, please feel free to come off mute, ask me, and or talk to me about your experience. But I would love for you to follow along as I present this and walk through Copilot notebooks in this session today. So once again, think of a Copilot notebook as your AI grounded project room. Now, why Copilot notebooks and what specific problem does it solve? Now, you already have M365 Copilot chat, right? You are licensed for Copilot, and I assume everybody on this call is licensed for M365 Copilot, because otherwise, Copilot notebooks will not work, at least not as you expect it to. So one of the major prerequisites is that you have the M365 Copilot license assigned to you. Thank you so much for that thumbs up. Now, what problem does the Copilot notebook solve that the M365 Copilot chat isn't already solving? Now, the difference between both of them is that Copilot chat is just going to be a general context-based broad variable that's going to draw from general knowledge and conversation history. So your Copilot chat is going to use, your conversation history, memory, a broad variable. So it's just going to be that broad variable that's helping you pull responses. Now, the output would also be, variable quantity. In some cases, depending on how large your conversation is for that context, it might just be hard to trace or even audit. Now, your session simply just resets, so there's really not a lot of persistent context. And then the grounding, yes, while it's anchored to enterprise content, because it's just chat, unless you're using an agent, but because it's just chat, the grounding is just going to be all of Microsoft 365 graph, which is your Microsoft 365 enterprise data, and the web. So even from a grounding perspective, it is still broad. Now, contrast that with Copilot notebooks. With Copilot notebooks, the context is curated. So you define what your content is. It will always be authorized. It will always be based on specific reference items. So you can start a notebook, and then if you have reference materials for that project that you're working on, for which you created this notebook, you could just upload those reference materials into this notebook. What that then does is that it uses these reference materials as its knowledge source at all times. So you don't need to build an agent. You don't need to use an agent. You just have a specific notebook that is curated for that specific purpose, whether it's a research or whether it's a project. Now the output, again, because you're using specific knowledge materials, the output would be repeatable. So it's going to be grounded in authorized content, which of course is defensible. Your sessions, your chat history is going to be preserved. There's not going to be any loss of work. The grounding, again, remember that you uploaded your reference materials. So the grounding will live within all of the fidelity of the documents that have been uploaded as knowledge source. And that's really the difference. Now, Copilot notebooks have 3 building blocks. The first is going to be instructions. Now, this is really cool because this is where you define what a notebook is. And this is, again, natural language instruction. So imagine that you're creating a notebook for a research in pathology, right? So you just want a specific notebook for that research. So your instruction would be, this notebook is created for the purpose of aiding research in, a pathology or a practice in pathology or specific items. I beg your pardon, I am not medically inclined, but you can get an idea of where we're going with this. So your instructions are going to be natural language instructions. You're just telling that notebook. Again, your notebook is AI grounded. So this is not like OneNote. This is notebook. So you're using instructions to curate your notebook. So when you're done, Copilot immediately adapts to that instruction. And that instruction is what you're then going to use, or what Copilot is going to rely on to provide you responses based on what you do within your notebook. The second building block is references. Now, remember I mentioned in the previous slide that you can now upload all the reference materials related to this project or this specific research. Now, because notebooks are AI grounded, to a large extent or to some extent, when you type in the name of your notebook, you've created your notebook, you've typed in the name, you've given it instructions, it will also attempt to discretionarily scan through your Microsoft 365 Life, we call that, graph, your enterprise data based on its grounding, and start pulling in related reference materials. But of course, you have absolute control, so you can even remove any reference material that's not needed for that notebook. You can remove it if it's not relevant, and then you can add in your own reference materials. So, of course, in creating these reference materials, Copilot will continue to honor all existing Microsoft 365 permissions. So that way, if you are not authorized to view a document, Copilot notebooks will not pull that material into your notebook. So again, if you type a research name or project name that's really popular in the environment, maybe there's a SharePoint site, but if you're not a member of that SharePoint site, or if you shouldn't have access to those documents, Copilot notebooks would not discretionarily pull those materials into your notebook. Now, you can upload up to 100 reference materials. Now, the thing here is this is still an approximate number. Sometime in the future, the number is likely to increase or decrease. Then within that notebook, the third building blocks is going to be pages. So you now have pages, which serves as a dedicated workplace or workspace that you can use to create specific items within the same notebook. So if you want to just have a section where you've created documents, the documents that you created will live in the notebook. If you want to have a specific area for your spreadsheets, they will also be there. Then if you have a specific area for your research, they will also remain within this notebook. We'll see this when we shift over to our demo session. Now, creating a notebook is really easy. Yes, Julie, question.
Yeah. So before you leave that slide, I wanted to
Oh,
know
yes.
about the references. So if I
Yes.
upload a reference that's confidential to me, does it
Yeah.
stay in my notebook or is it shared with others, even
Oh,
within my own institution?
ding, 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 ding. Thank you so much, Julie. Yes, it's confidential to just you. It's private. Um, you're not sharing your notebook. So remember, it's your notebook, right? So if you upload a material that's confidential to just you, yes, it stays in your notebook and it remains confidential to just you. Copilot uses that to reason, it uses that now as a knowledge source and uses it to provide responses to just you as you interact with that notebook. So it's your notebook. So yes, that's the answer to that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a solid question, by the way. I'm pausing for any follow-ups. Okay, awesome. So it looks like we're on the right track. All right, so again, getting started with creating your first notebook. This is really very easy. Within the Copilot chat icon, and I'll show you where that is and how we can locate it. Let me pull up this. I think there are some. Just asked, Margie just asked where to find Copilot notebooks, and you went, yes. So Copilot notebooks, that's actually this slide. Now, Copilot notebooks is within Copilot chat. So you'd go into Copilot chat. Now we've moved notebooks, to a different location. I will show you what that looks like. As a matter of fact, let me grab a screenshot of where it is. It's right here. And let me drop that into the chat. But you would see it as well when I move over to the demo to showcase how a notebook would look like and how you can create one. But the steps to create a notebook is really easy. You'd navigate to, or you open the Copilot chat app, and then you would select notebook and then click new to create a new notebook. Now, after you've created your notebook, I see someone is off mute. Let me know if you have a question. Okay. Marsha, was that a question? You're off mute.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Marsha. All right, cool. So you've set up your new notebook. Ideally, you'd give your notebook a name. Now I see Margie has a question. Can you pin the notebook so that you can see it all the time? Oh, so this is a UI change that's coming. Now, I will tell you this. The notebooks used to be accessible under the within the left-hand pane menu. But an upcoming UI change is being planned that will bring that notebook back to where it should be. I don't have any specific dates yet, but that's something that's coming. All right, so give your notebook a name, right? Give it a name that's really meaningful to you and that can help you find it. Okay, then add your references. But like I said, when you create your notebook and you give it a name, Copilot also has, because notebooks are AI grounded, Copilot also has a cool way of using that name, referencing it across all the documents you've probably been working on, and discretionarily pull in files that you have access to. This is something I have noticed personally, but you definitely have full control over this, and you can remove any irrelevant reference and then add in your own relevant references to that specific notebook. The final step, which is the fourth step, is then writing your instructions for this notebook. This is what guides Copilot for that notebook on how the notebook will work, or how Copilot will make that notebook work for you. Okay, now let's talk about the AI model modes within Copilot notebooks. Now there are 4 modes. Ira has a question. So Ira, let me go back this one slide just in case that's where your question is. Ira, your question? Ira, while you're coming up with your question, probably looking for the mute button. Okay. Monica threw in a question in the chat. What's the difference between creating a notebook and an agent? Thank you. So think of notebooks as an, let's use quote unquote, agentic version of OneNote. So we're all familiar with OneNote. Give me a thumbs up if we're familiar with OneNote. Thumbs up if you know OneNote. So Copilot Notebooks is an agentic version or iteration of OneNote. You're not building an agent, you're just creating a notebook that will work almost the same way as creating an agent. With an agent, you have to build your agent. The difference is an agent can connect to connectors. So you can connect an agent to ServiceNow. You can connect an agent to your to Epic, to your medical system that's compatible with Copilot. You can connect an agent to SharePoint. You can connect an agent to, again, agents have connectors that you can connect to and then use them as knowledge sources. So agents are much more advanced. However, if you simply just want to do something that's somewhat agentic, but not an agent, you just need a simple research space, a simple project space where you just want to add in your reference material and you want to just do your research. Then boom, go ahead, create a notebook, and that's the simple solution. Yeah, so that's the difference. And thank you so much, Orestes. So no, a notebook cannot be connected to connectors like websites. Again, that's where like a link, like LinkedIn, especially websites that have subscriptions. So subscription-based websites are gated, right? So they're gated with usernames, passwords, and sometimes additional authenticating protocols. That's where agents comes in. Because again, if we're talking about the differences, an agent will use connectors. Because agents can connect, agents will have a specific way to establish those connections, like APIs or like, coded means of connecting to services. A notebook, you simply just upload your materials, your reference materials. This can be a SharePoint site, can be, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, or even OneNotes. You can add your OneNotes as knowledge sources, references. So we don't call them knowledge sources, we just call them references in OneNote. Orestes, I hope that answers your question. Can I get a thumbs up if it does? Let me also pause for any follow-up. Awesome, thank you. Okay, good. So moving on. Now, AI model modes in Copilot notebooks. Now, there are 4 modes, right? There's the automatic mode. The auto mode automatically selects the best model and reasoning depth per request. So depending on, so if you leave it on auto, depending on the length of your prompt and the request in your prompt, the auto mode will use the best model for that task. Now, this doesn't require any admin configuration, and it would really be good. Auto mode would be ideal for, everyday tasks such as email drafts, summaries, or even those quick analysis that you need to perform. That's what auto mode would be. Okay, but we'll see this as well. When you create your notebook and you start a chart within your notebook, you would see the LLM mode, the AI model mode, and it would by default be on auto. Now, if you click that auto drop down, the next you're going to see is going to be quick responses. Now, quick response is, that it prioritizes response speed over depth. So the depth of your response would not be as detailed. You just want a very quick response to a question or to a prompt. Now, this would be good for rapid iterations, for short summaries, for quick answers, especially during meetings. Now, then the third mode is the think deeper mode. Now, this mode takes its time. It pauses to reason before responding, but then it does this multi-step logic, to help you create very detailed content. So that means it prefers thoroughness over speed. So this is really going to be ideal for complex proposals, policy analyses, or even those multi-document syntheses that you want your notebook to perform, or the AI mode in your notebook to perform. Now, the final mode is going to be the Claude mode, the Claude model mode. Now, in this mode, there are two sub models. Now, because Claude, being an anthropic model, would come with two of the best models, AI models. The first is going to be Claude Sonnet 4.6. Now, Claude Sonnet would ideally just be an almost more detailed equivalent of Think Deeper, because Think Deeper, Quick Response, and Auto are GPT models. And they're GPT models operating at GPT 5.5. But the Claude Sonnet would provide much more detail, takes its time, thinks deeper, and then provides responses. However, the second sub-mode within the Claude models are, yes, you can share Copilot notebooks with others, but we'll see that as well. That's a good question. Anna just, I'll read Anna and Maggie's question. Then we have the Opus 4.7, which is reserved for, long form, deep, very complicated tasks. Again, the Claude models are, if you really want the best, more detailed, more analytical responses, then you'd want to use the Claude models. So these are all the 4 AI modes that operate within your Copilot notebooks. While I move to the next slide and allow that to sink in, to talk about the Claude models, let me read the questions here. Nova, I already answered that question. So Anna's saying, I tried to connect the agent to Box and I got this error. So this is for agent. Yeah, so agent, a little outside of what we're talking about. However, that would require some troubleshooting. Happy to connect with you offline, Anna, to help resolve this specific issue. But yes, it goes back to the point. Agent will connect to connectors. Copilot notebooks just uses reference material. So if you already have the references, you can upload them into your notebook. Now, Margie, your question is, can you add emails to notebook for reference? No, you don't need to convert those emails. You can add, if you download them as an EML file, you can upload them as references to your notebook. But you can also ask your notebook in chat, ask the model to search emails or search an email for something. It still has access to graph, your graph. So it would still search any emails that you've received that's in your inbox. So this slide just provides more in-depth information about the 2 Claude models that work within Copilot notebooks, and I already explained that. The Claude Sonnet 4.6 would typically just be long form synthesis, for policy summarization, complex communications, and even very detailed document creation. Opus 4.7 is going to be the most demanding reasoning tasks. So we're reserving that for your most demanding deep reasoning tasks. And it powers the researcher agent as well, which also uses multi-source analysis. Oh yes, absolutely. I will drop my email. Let me actually do that real quick. There you go. And that's my email for you and for everybody else who needs to reach out to me for additional support. So having understood all of the AI modes within Copilot notebooks, this is a quick table that summarizes what each mode is used for. So like I said, if the task is just a quick email draft or a short summary, then you can use quick response. If this is just everyday research, standard Q&A, meeting recaps, then you can set it to auto mode. You don't need to change anything. It will be on auto mode by default. Now, if you want, to work on something that's really a complex multi-document synthesis, analyze policies, then you can choose between Think Deeper or Claude Sonnet 4.6. Now, if this is a deep reasoning over a document that's over 100 pages of content, then you can choose between Claude Opus 4.7 or the Think Deeper mode. So you have this summary that really highlights, how you should choose the mode within your notebook. I'm pausing for any questions that might work. But the rest of these slides, again, just provide more detail into each of those modes. Now let's talk about prompting strategies that will really give you maximum impact. Now, this isn't the first Copilot training that you've attended, but if it is, welcome to Copilot. So for a quick Copilot 101, we've talked and we keep saying this, especially in our Art of the Possible trainings. The best prompt will contain 4 ingredients as part of the framework, the prompting framework. That framework is called the GCSE framework. The G is for goal. You tell Copilot what you want it to do. The C is a context. You describe the scenario, the situation, the personas involved as part of that goal. The S is your source. Where should Copilot look? How should it get its information? And then the E is for expectation. How do you want Copilot to give you this result? So we take that prompting strategy and then we bring it back into Copilot notebooks. Your prompt strategy will also remain the same. However, in order to just get maximum impact for your prompting, you want to be explicit. You also want to make sure that your prompt contains scoped details. So the details in your prompt should also be scoped. An example, for instance, is compare the 2 attached policy documents and cite differences by section. You're not just going to say, summarize my files. You see the difference between scoping. You could also ensure that your request structure, you request structured outputs. As part of your expectation, be sure to tell Copilot how you want your output. So if you want it to create a table, tell it to create a table. If you want it to create numbered list or bulleted list or decision matrices, be sure to tell it this, because these are specific formats and these formats are intended to help improve clarity. Now, part of the prompt strategy is also to use iterative prompting, right? When you generate a first draft, be ready to provide additional context, be ready to provide follow-ups. Now, because it's Copilot, it's AI, it will give you clues for what it would love to do next. So you can use those as starter prompts for how you can request it to continue, right? Now, you could also add a document directly to a prompt. So when you're prompting within Copilot notebooks, you could also upload additional documents as well, if those are not already part of your reference materials. Now, the cool thing here is, because it's a notebook, whatever document you upload simply just gets added to your reference materials queue. So it's just there in your reference materials. You're not going to go look for the document you previously uploaded. All right. Now, things to avoid. Definitely avoid, asking it to make external knowledge assumptions. Now, Copilot notebooks do not browse the web. So when Copilot lacks context, please be sure to add or replace any references rather than restarting that prompt. So that's one thing you want. So that notebook is your secure, confined space between you and Copilot. So it's just going to guide your thought process, your materials output, and how it's able to serve you, as a proper digital assistant that it really is. Now, one cool tip I always like to add, and I've added it in the slide, is if remember the question about sharing your Copilot notebooks. So when you share your Copilot notebooks, of course, you want to keep it professional. So keep your prompt professional. The chart is still going to be visible to anybody you share your notebook with. So that's something to take note of. All right. For the interest of time, I'll just breeze through some of these use cases. So again, you would have this as part of your the PDF copy I'll send over, and I have them on 2 slides. But just to run through this quickly, you can use notebooks. Again, remember, Copilot notebooks are purpose-built. They're going to be used for research, for knowledge management, to help you manage projects, all of that work that requires multi-source synthesis, traceability, and even repeatable precision, right? So think your policy and regulatory analysis, your executive briefing preparations, onboarding and knowledge transfer, your, recurring reporting. All of these are part of some of those use cases that you can use with Copilot notebooks. But one major thing I wanted to call out is because is part of the Frontier program, you could also reference SharePoint and OneNote materials as part of your reference materials on notebooks as well. All right, so this is just additional use cases for this. So just to do a quick wrap up, and I just want to talk real quick about the architecture, the security, and the admin controls. And this is really because someone had asked the question about, the privacy of Copilot notebooks if you upload a confidential material. Now, Copilot notebooks are stored in secure SharePoint embedded containers. Now, the cool thing here, from a point of value, is that the storage of notebooks does not count against a user's OneDrive or SharePoint quota. So we're providing notebooks as a high-value item, especially from a storage perspective. So there's absolutely no limit to how many notebooks you can create and even share. Now, the data, of course, stays within UM's Microsoft 365 security boundary. Now, as far as permissions go, Copilot will reason over the content the user is authorized to access. So if you do not have any access to any document, Copilot is not going to reason over that document within your OneNote, or if you're prompting within OneNote. Now, if permissions change, those permissions propagate immediately. So if you used to have access to a Word document, and you uploaded this Word document as a reference to your Copilot notebook, and then Susan removes that permission, removes you as someone who should access that document, that permission is instantly propagated. Copilot will instantly stop reasoning over that Word file. So permissions propagate instantly. Now, notebook pages also support e-discovery. So this is something to note. Again, remember, the data stays within UM's Microsoft 365 environment and is stored securely. So that's something to also note here. Notebooks are also managed through, this is something for admins, they're managed through the cloud policy, and policies, of course, can be scoped to specific users. Now, one thing to call out is, even as Microsoft, we do not use customer data to train foundation models. So as part of the enterprise data protection, all of your interactions with Copilot within your notebook will never be used to train any of those models, whether it's the GPT model or the Claude model or any other model we onboard in the future, your interaction with Copilot within that notebook will never be used to train these models. I'm pausing for questions before I show the last slides. Let's talk about do's and don'ts. But I'll pause for a few seconds for questions. Also monitoring the chat for any of these questions. All right, good. So let's talk about do's and don'ts. Now, these are really very simple, right? Now, you want to use one notebook for one meaningful project. So that means one context, one project, one research. If you have another topic, create a new notebook. So one notebook for one thing, right? Now, be sure to add and curate relevant references. So only relevant references, because whatever reference you upload to your notebook is what Copilot is going to use for responses within that notebook. So if a reference material is not relevant, there's no need to upload it into that one notebook. If it's for a different notebook, create that different notebook and upload that reference material into that notebook. That way, it also helps you to stay organized with your work, your project, your research, whatever it is that you're working on. Now, write instructions before your first prompt. These instructions are important. They guide Copilot for how Copilot should respond to you and behave within the notebook that you're creating. So before you start prompting, it's always a good idea to just give Copilot its instructions. Now, you can also use pages within your notebook. So you can go create a new page and use those pages to segment the work stages. Also be sure to remember to update your reference material. If any reference has changed, if any relevance has changed, you can remove, you can add, as the case may be. And then for your model, remember we went through the different models. So for your model, be sure to select the model that matches the task that you're doing. Here's an example. If I already have chat, can I migrate it to a notebook? That's a good question, Juan. The answer is a big fat yes. You can right click on a chat and add to notebook, provided that notebook exists. As a matter of fact, you can click on a chat, add to notebook, and you should even see a plus button that says create a new notebook that you can add the chat to. So yes. Boom, there you go. Thank you, Juan. Right. So if you have a complex task and you feel you should use the Claude model, don't start with auto. Click that auto drop down, select the Claude model and use it for that task. So be sure to match the model that suits the task that you're working on. Again, these are the things that you, allow me to use the word must do as best practices for your notebook. Now, things to avoid. Let's talk about those real quick, right? Don't treat your notebook as a generic Copilot chat. That's what Copilot chat is for. So if you just want to do, quick research, answer questions and all of that, yeah, by all means, just use Copilot chat. You already have a license, you're using premium Copilot. Copilot chat will still get the job done for you. A notebook is just going to be specific, right? Also, don't dump unrelated files together. Remember, I talked about reference materials. So your reference materials must be relevant to the notebook context. Now, don't also expect OneNote style freeform behavior. OneNote is purpose-built as a notepad. Think of it, OneNote is the best notepad on this planet. I haven't seen any solution that matches it. Also, OneNote also has Copilot, especially if you have Copilot license. However, we're talking about an AI-grounded OneNote alternative. So this is an AI-grounded chat, Copilot chat, right? But they're going to be different. So do not expect Copilot Notebook to behave exactly like OneNote. They're two different solutions, but they're almost related. Now, don't skip instructions because Copilot needs this to get your intents. Imagine having a new intern, someone who's been sent to you to understudy you, and you've not given them any instructions of how they should provide you responses. And then your first assignment is go and create an agenda for the meeting we're having tomorrow. So that person, that intern doesn't know how you like your responses, doesn't know whether you need bulleted lists, doesn't know whether you need an executive summary as part of the agenda, doesn't know all of these things. So they'll just go and create an agenda, and then you end up not liking what they've done because you didn't give them instructions. So a Copilot notebook will still work, but it's always best to bolster it with instructions. And then for the very last slide, this is just, again, your next steps for the very last slide before we move over to the demo in the interest of time. One thing I would like for you to do, especially in this, as part of this exercise, create your notebook. Juan already beat us to it. Juan already has notebooks. I wonder how many notebooks Juan has, but we're already seeing from his question what he's done. And then build a research notebook. If you're an IT admin, make sure you govern Claude within the environment. I know this for a fact. And then, well, that's pretty much it. Any questions before we move over? So, oh yes, Julie, question.
Thanks, Charles. I have years of OneNote
Yes.
and 12 or 15 notebooks.
Wow.
Do you feel that this is a way to transition away from those?
That's a good question. I'm sorry if I cut you off. I was just excited by that question.
I'm not cut off.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Can you?
Okay.
Okay. Did you hear me?
Yes, I did. But are you done asking the question?
Yes, I just wanted to know, my reason to come here is I've been at the university for 35 years and I'm looking for a way to use all the tools that are provided to us to try and make my job easier. And I have all these notebooks and projects and I want to reference things that I had done a couple of years ago. I'm like, where did I put it? And so I'm searching my notebooks for that, that piece of information. And I'm thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great if we can move on to something like this? How do I transition myself away from OneNote, or do I need to do both?
Good. That's the key to your question there. That key,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not more. Oh, I'd prefer that you don't think of it more as transitioning away, right? Because remember, from a value perspective, you already have a Copilot license that's available within OneNote. Now, the cool thing we've done, which is where the both statement in your question is the key. The cool thing we've done here is that we've made sure that you can add OneNote as reference materials to your Copilot notebook. So you most certainly can do both. Another cool thing from a value perspective is that Copilot Notebook is an AI-first, AI-driven OneNote type solution, but it is not exactly OneNote. Another example of this analogy is you can ask Copilot to create a Microsoft Word document for you, but Copilot is not Microsoft Word. And of course, if you open Microsoft Word, you can still ask Copilot to do exactly the same thing. So from an organizational perspective, organizing for you, all of your 35 serious years of very adorable work, one way to then begin to integrate, not transition, integrate Copilot Notebook into your workflow is to add the notebook, the OneNote references or OneNote as reference materials to the dedicated notebooks that you will now start building. It's not going to be a quick flash type integration, but it's something that will really help you leverage that AI first strategy within OneNote to start pulling those in. And you could also, part of your instructions could also be, to have that OneNote, the notebook, to search or traverse your OneNote for, related reference materials. How does that sound?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. And again, congratulations on 35 years. All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, cool. Any questions? Let me stop sharing and then let's spend 5 minutes.
Marge wants to know,
Oh yeah.
can you transition? Sorry.
Oh yeah, so Marge, yeah, thank you so much, Julie. So Marge's question is, can you transition materials from Box Drive to Notebook? Good question, Marge. You cannot, because notebooks are not agents, right? So you cannot connect directly to Box. What you can do instead is you can download those materials from Box and then upload them into your OneNote. Again, that's going to be the difference between your notebook. That's going to be the difference between Copilot Notebook versus agents. Marge, does that make sense? Okay, awesome. Okay, I know we're already almost at time. I just want to spend 5 minutes. Also, I believe we've also already started using notebooks, but let me just quickly show this and quickly share. So this is my Copilot app, right? So notebooks would just be here. If you can see my pointer, notebooks is tucked away right here, and then you would click notebook. So when you click notebooks, it opens up the notebook hub. And then from here, you could just create a new notebook. So for those who are going to be doing this for the first time, again, if you click the app panel, it's called the app panel. The app panel is right, on the panel collapse menu. If you click the app panel, click notebooks, it opens the notebook hub, and then you click new notebook. So when you click new notebook, this is what you then have. So you'd have the ability to type in your notebook name. So let's call this University of Miami cohort, right? And then for your reference materials, again, this is happening at the point of creating your notebook. If you don't have any reference materials just yet, that's fine. You can just go ahead and click create. But from the create dialog box, you can immediately start adding materials. And you can see here, you have the ability to upload files from your Windows desktop or links. If there's a link, you can add it here, or you can add your cloud files, whether they're from SharePoint that you have access to or your OneDrive, or you can just use files from here. And then if it's a meeting that you have access to, perhaps meeting recordings, you can select them from here. Again, your SharePoint site will also show up here. This is a demo tenant, so I don't have any of these. But let's just assume we've uploaded or we've done this. We can just go ahead and click create. It then creates your notebook. So you typically just wait for it to fully synthesize. So it's all loading up. Now it's done. So you can still add more materials here. You can add more reference materials here. On the right-hand pane, you would have your chat, and then you can chat with Copilot. Now, again, this is just to showcase how this works. You have the ellipses here, and then you can add under settings. You just see how all of this, is configured. Now, under create, the overview, of course, is showing you this, and then you can still add your materials. Now, if we click create, under create, I can now set up a new page. And then in the new page, I can start typing what I want. Now, of course, the new page will carry its own title as you give it a title. Think of this as the way OneNote works. And then on the right-hand pane, I can start typing my prompt to give it an instruction of how it should work. And this is really Copilot notebooks in a nutshell. So I'll pause so we can use the remaining 2 minutes to answer any questions. Yes, Julie?
Yes, thank you. Where's the output? So if you generate a Word document or some, whatever your output is, where is that stored
Oh yeah,
for
so
this notebook? Thank
yeah,
you.
so for you, because you're using notebooks, the output would be in the notebook itself. So you would find the output here under your content, where I'm flipping my Copilot, I mean my pointer. So you'd find the
Yeah, I see
output
it.
here. Good.
Okay.
But from a storage perspective, notebooks have a dedicated SharePoint container. So they're not stored in OneDrive like the files you upload into Copilot Chat. So the files you upload into Copilot Chat are saved in a folder in your OneDrive called Copilot Chat files. But for notebooks, you would easily find the output files on the left-hand pane of your notebook.
Perfect.
Yeah, another solid question, Julie. Thank you.
This is the best AI training presentation I've attended to date. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Julie. That means a lot to hear. Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you everyone once again for attending and participating. I really appreciate it. These Launch and Learn series will continue. They are running sessions. So I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Charles, if we contact you by email, what's our expectation from you? You'll return the email within a week,
Oh, no.
24 hours?
Within 24 hours, most certainly.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
All right,
Well, I didn't know because you're not a UM employee. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, all. All right, have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much, Charles. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.